Hello everybody, it's Jay Britton here with a new Let's Play of Dominions 5, coming live and direct from inside the beta. So, my god in this one is going to be called Put Litter in Its Place, the god of Caelum. You've seen these messages before about at the beginning there was chaos and now the wheel is turned once again. They may or may not be in a release, they might have changed them up something different. So the map we're using is called Bidden, it's by PyMouse. His maps, or at least a couple of them, are going to be included with the game upon release. I'd say some of the most aesthetically pleasing, although you can use any Dominions 4 map, will work fine in Dominions 5, but his are going to be featuring new stuff such as the snow layer and nicely tuned up province borders, which won't be there for a lot of the older maps without a little bit of tweaking on behalf of the makers. Anyway, getting into this, so what is my god? My god is Put Litter in Its Place Nataraja, the great son of life, the god of doors, beginnings and endings, prince of strength. He's a pretender god, trying to banish all the others, as they often do. What is his bless? Because he's got a very, very large bless. It's this. So, attack skill +2 is a stepped bless you can now buy for 3 fire points per bonus 2, and it isn't incarnate, so you can always use that on a pretender. Solar weapons, which is bonus 3 AP damage trebled on undead and demons, which is quite useful against one of the factions, or at least one of the factions, if not more, that I'll be facing in this game, as I'm facing Lemuria. Magic weapons, which give all of your regular weapons the magic attributes, so they can hit through ethereality and also invulnerability. Undying +8, which is 4 points worth of the Undying Bless. Regeneration, which is now N7 but doesn't provide any HP in and of itself. And Affliction Resistance 3, which brings your chance of getting Affliction down to 25% of its original level, which is also useful on a pretender like Nataraja, who has a tendency to get spiked by a bit of damage and become pretty useless. In terms of the faction, let's have a look here. So you have a scout that costs too much resources, which is always a problem on Caelum, but there you go. You have a good general called a Storm General, who's got decent leadership and it's generally kind of handy to have around. And then you've got an OK general called the Raven Lord, costs a bit less resources than gold, so they're useful in that respect. You then have a bunch of mages. You have Harab Seraphim and Caelum Seraphim, who are your kind of go-to research and, to some extent, battle mages. Although Harab Seraphim are a little unreliable because of the sheer amount of different powers they can get. You can end up with some pretty dubious combinations, as often as you can end up with some really good ones. So they can get Air 2, but then you have another mage that does that, so why do you try and replicate it on them? You have Death, which you can get up to as well, and then Water, Fire and Earth. Which, yeah, some of the combinations are more helpful than others. Caelum Seraphim are the same as the Area Seraphim of previous eras, so you have Air and Water 2. These guys you go to kind of Caelum mages across all eras. You have the Ironcrafter, who provides resources and has a small Forge bonus, although it only has Earth 1. So the Forge bonus isn't used on all the match stuff, although some of the more useful things such as kind of brace of defense and things like that do come at a low level of Earth magic, so it can come in a little bit handy. And then your cap only mage is the Harab Elder. Harab Elder is an Air, Earth and Death mage with chances of getting all kinds of random stuff, although the chance to get up to Air 3 is only 22%, which is kind of annoying about the faction actually, and reduces their effectiveness of their air magic quite significantly compared to earlier eras. But that's just one of those things about the faction that you just have to kind of know in advance and to some extent plan around. It's a sort of like how MA Man can sometimes just get shafted in terms of getting Air 3 for its crones. They're in a similar position on Caelum. So Thunderstrike and so on is not quite as readily available as you might hope it would be. And then they also get a priest mage outside the capital called a Caretaker. He's your only native priest, and they are a Death and Earth mage as well. In terms of your troops, you have Spirehorn, who are resistant to lightning and have magic weapons. You have the Area, who are resistant to cold and get cold protection. and also have magic weapons. And then you have the more kind of human-like Raptorians. So you have militia with pretty bad stats, but you can see their hit points are rather higher than most Caelum troops, all the way up to like warriors who have very kind of human heavy infantry kind of gear. Unfortunately for them, high encumbrance on a flying unit is pretty terrible, because their rate of fatigue that they take is a little bit higher than normal anyway, and also their combat speed, with the changes to how combat works in Dominions 5 and has now real time, means that when they fly into a enemy's kind of back line, as they often do, as they're often intended to do, their lower than average combat speed can mean they tend to get hit quite a lot before they then start striking themselves. There's a random aspect to it, so you won't always go after a combat speed 8 unit if you're a combat speed 7 unit, but it's kind of biased in favour of having a higher combat speed. The other thing they get is mammoths, which are really useful. An iceclad, who is really, really intensively resource heavy, so no one ever buys them. And then 2 sacreds. You have Iron Hail Archers, who are probably going to be my go-to if I can in my capital. And then Earthbound, who are they're okay. They're like a sacred version of an LA Man unit, but with innate reinvigoration. But on the other hand, they have 10 encumbrance, which is high. And they also don't have any elemental resistances. So inside your own dominion, which tends to be very cold, as LA Caelum, that's all the way up to 12, which is just insane. Unless this is pre-including it. No, it isn't. Yeah, it is up all the way up to 12. And they also don't really benefit all that much more from my bless than Iron Hail Archers in terms of survivability. And because the composite bow fires every single turn rather than just every other turn like an Earthbound crossbow, the kind of DPS of the unit is reduced, and when you're dealing with big swarms of ghosts and so on, I'd much rather just be constantly doing as much damage as possible. Let's see who we're up against. Let's do that. So we have not a botcaster, the Pretender Philomeria. I suspect they may try and cast bot. They've got Darkness Instruction, King of Plagues, which are both death epithets, Master of the Arcane Mysteries, which is magic, which for Lemuria makes a lot of sense because they have double. They gain double the bonus for magic scales and double the penalty for drain scales on their national research summons, or any mage summons really. And a Patron of Gamblers is a luck epithet. Asmarandi, King of Kings, not entirely sure of that one. Gatherer of Dead, presumably Death, and Patron of Farmers, which is a nature. Nature one, so they've probably got some kind of DN pretender, not entirely sure which. They may get some of the new ones, I'm not entirely sure, from the North Home Realm, as it's called. Bogorus is a faction that tends to do okay if it's left late, but tends to get rushed early, and on a small amount like this with only 4 players, I fear they may get rushed early. And then Ptolemy, who is from basically LA Pelagia, which plays a lot like LA Atlantis, so it's called Erethair. In terms of their stuff, they just get a whole bunch of regular kind of commands and scat and so on. They get a pretty okay priest, who is quite a lot like kind of combination of a Machakan one and a well, it's a TC eunuch and also a Machakan priest in terms of just general patrol bonusing and priest levels and so on. They're okay, they're pretty useful. Mystics are like a weaker version of Arco Scaphalean Mystic, but they're also cheaper at 90. They have a minor research bonus, and they have a guaranteed chance to gain one other path, or they can get up to Astral 2. Mermages are like your regular mermage. They're fine. They can go underwater, which Mystics can't, but they have slightly less research output. Dadachos are going to be used, I'd say, by most Erethian players as their standard mage. They're going to go to because they have a whole bunch of magic potential, and they are not that expensive, 165 and only 2 rec points for a commander with a pretty decent research output of 15, or averaging at 15, anywhere up to, what, let's have a look at this. 2 bonus, so that's already up to 10, 12... Sorry, 11, 13, and then anywhere up to 19, or anything as low as 13. But yes, pretty good research output, pretty good mage, just because of the combination of powers they can get. They can cast all kinds of stuff. You can go like flaming arrows with them. You can do some of that earth stuff. Slot well into a communion. You know, tons and tons of potential on those guys. They're a good buy. Prince of the Setting Sun have similar-ish guaranteed stuff, and then a lot more weird potential. The royalty of Erythea is one of the main selling points of the faction, but at the same time they are hard to use together, because Princesses of the Setting Sun like to poison one another, and Princes of the Setting Sun send assassins at each other if they're in the same province. It's not guaranteed by any means, but it can happen. On the plus side, when there is one prince and one princess, they get married, as is the kind of Ptolemaic way of doing things, and they gain a bonus holy point. So the faction tends to have 3 smiters in the first year easily, so they're quite hard to rush with a super combatant pretender, because depending on whatever their largest path is on their pretender god, you may well be getting hit by the nature effect, for example, which does a bleed and entangle, and once you start getting bled, even if you have regen, the fatigue starts stacking up and your guy will probably die. So yeah, that's something to be concerned about with the faction. Oh, in terms of their troops, they have just normal guys like Peltas, but one of them go underwater, this guy. They have Gastrophites on these Erythean crossbowmen, which are a shorter range normal crossbow with slightly lower damage, but they can fire half range underwater, which is kind of handy on a faction that kind of, you know, travels in both. Helps them quite a lot against quite a lot of indies, because you can have a front row of Phalangites and Hoplites, which kind of absorb the first blow, and then the crossbowmen can fire from the back in a much more kind of available way than for example Rillier, who would have very expensive mine blasters, or Atlantis, which has harpoon throwers that you don't really want to buy when you get Ice Warriors and so on instead. And then underwater they just have pretty standard Pelagian units, including a Triton Knight, so they can fight pretty well. They don't have Void Sanity or anything like that. I don't believe they have any. Yeah, they don't have any Dark Vision either. So they'll be kind of hamstrung fighting against Rillier inside its own dominion, but the faction already has a pretty good chance of surviving on land, so the underwater is more like a bonus thing to them, I'd say. Anyway, I hope this has been somewhat useful and interesting, and I hope to see you again next time. Thank you very much for watching. Been Joe Brereton, and goodbye.